Bishop Blunders, Part 2. Yeah, what's going on, part of people, the place to be? I go by the BK Apologist, transmitting all the way live from New York City and Brooklyn B, the borough within that city. What's good? What's popping? Hope everybody's having a good day. First day of the work week. Impending tropical storm, middle of the week, at least for us residents of the East Coast. So hopefully we'll be all right. And of course, we gotta say what's up to the party people in the chat. Of course, we have the indelible, the uncomparable, king of all mods, Nate2D2's on the check-in. We got Bodega Lady Dana Owens on the check-in. We got my main man Wash in the building. What's going on, sir? I see what you're doing out there in these YouTube streets. Keep up the good work, sir. So yeah, guys. I mean, this is what we're here. This is what we're about. And of course, as always, if you have not yet, please like, share, and subscribe. Tell a friend to tell a friend that's him again. Really striving to hit 5,000 subs. Really appreciate it if you guys can just click on and sub, and also please put up a thumbs up as well. It's just encouraging to see more people supporting and encouraging what I'm trying to do. So the more you sub, even if you've been a consistent watcher, for some time now, it would really do my heart some good if you just click that button and subscribe. So I could just see that there are more people who are really engaged with what I'm doing, and they appreciate what I'm doing. And if you also appreciate what I'm doing, you can also throw a little digital coinage via the PayPal link that's tagged in top of the pin and top of the chat, or you could become a Patreon where you get not monthly, but regular goodies to enhance your personal Bible study. Tyler Lodge in the building. What it do? What it do? What's going on? Good to see you guys. So yeah, Bishop Blunders Part 2. And of course, if you saw the thumbnail, having a little bit of fun, just a little. Of course, we're speaking about Bishop Nathaniel, who is the leader of IUIC. And unfortunately, the eisegetical rendering of text goes beyond that of just reading from their King James Bible. They eisegete pretty much everything. And we're going to have a couple examples of the good bishop doing this. Now, the question after we see these couple examples, is the bishop having a hard time understanding the text that he's reading, or is he being deceitful? Right? I'll leave it up to you guys to decide what it could be. So with that being said, we're going to look at the first clip right here.
Take a look at today's hidden history.
Crania, Egyptiaca, Observations of Egyptian Ethnography. All right, this was published in 1844. All right, going over to page 66. Number 8. Negroes were numerous in Egypt, but their social position in ancient times was the same that it now is, that of servants and slaves. So who were the servants and slaves in Egypt? The Israelites. That's what they're saying. The Israelites.
That's what they're saying, according to him reading this text, right? That's specifically referencing the Israelites, right? So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna look, because as you guys already sure you know, I too have this. Okay. I too have a copy of the Crania Egyptiaca. Okay. And let's see what it says here. This is from pages 3 to 4. It was remarked 50 years ago by the learned Professor Blumenbach that a principal requisite for inquiries such as we now propose would be a very careful technical examination of the skulls of mummies hitherto met with, together with an accurate comparison of these skulls with monuments. This is precisely the design I have in view in the following memoir, which I therefore commence by an analysis of the characters of all the crania now in my possession. These may be referred to two of the great races of men, the Caucasian and the Negro. Although there is a remarkable disparity in the number of each, the Caucasian heads also vary so much among themselves as to present several different types of this race, which may perhaps be appropriately grouped under the following designations. So now he's going to show us. Right, first, he says that these skulls, these craniums, fall into two categories: the Caucasian and the Negro. And then he's talking about how within the Caucasian subheading, there's different variations under the Caucasian cranium. And because of that, he has to list the different variations within the Caucasian craniums, right? So let's see who falls under that list. We have the Pelasic type in this division. I place those here Hellenistic lineaments are familiar to us in the beautiful mold, symmetry, and delicacy of the whole osteological structure. And then also under the Caucasian race is the Semitic type, as seen in the Hebrew communities, heavy, broad, and strong, and often harsh developments. So remember, he has two compartments here for these craniums. It's the Caucasian and the Negro. So he first starts off with the designation, the different variations within the Caucasian race. And who makes the list? The Semitic people, aka the Hebrews. The good bishop reads from the same text about Negroes being enslaved in Egypt, and he interjects within the text that this is the Hebrews. But that's not what this writer is saying. This writer is not saying that at all. He's saying that, no, the Semitic people fall under the heading of the Caucasian race. Now, a little bit information about the individual, Mr. Morton here, who wrote this book. And we get this from the SPLC Learning for Justice website. Most natural scientists in the 19th century held the belief that human beings were not only members of different races, but of different species, also known as the theory of polygyny. This school of thought relied on the works of Samuel Morton. This is the person who wrote the book that the good bishop has just quoted. Morton was a Philadelphia physician and was considered one of the United States' greatest scientists. He supported polygyny through his work measuring human skull volumes. He measured modern and ancient skulls and concluded that the human race or species could be ranked on a scale of intelligence. His measurements showed that modern Caucasian, his term, skulls had the highest volume, followed by Chinese skulls, American Indian skulls, and the lowest volume. Morton found that the volume of the African skulls were third in line, above both South Asians and the American Indians. Morton's skull measurements were used to justify the institution of chattel slavery in the United States. If Africans were not of the same species as Caucasians, then enslaving them was more easily explained and excused. Indeed, this belief supported the reasoning of Justice Roger B. Taney in the Dred Scott decision of 1857. Today, we understand that both the theory of Palingri and Morton's skill measurements are deeply flawed. First, Morton did not have a representative sample of human skulls on which to draw statistically valid inferences. Second, there is no relationship between normal variation in skull volume in any species and the measured, quote, intelligence of its members. Morton failed to understand the significance of human biological variation due to the institutional racism of the period. His own bigotry and the fact that he was operating under an incorrect scientific assumption that different races originated in different zones of the world. So the good bishop is quoting a book that was written under the covering of scientific racism. This is a white supremacist propaganda book that he's quoting from. And this ain't the first time he's done this. Okay. So not only does he not only does he add things into the book that wasn't there, the book is also against Black people. He's using an anti-Black book to try to prove a point. His work, Mr. Morton's work, was used against Dred Scott in the Dred Scott case. He was a leader within the field of what we now call scientific racism. And this is what the good bishop decides to quote from. That's very interesting, to say the least. So with that, let's get back to the video. All right. And let's see here. Just give me a second, guys. Righty. Yeah, we're gonna start. Yeah. All right, we're gonna continue from where we left off.
The Israelites. That's what they're saying. The Israelites. A treatise on physical geography. This book was published in 1850. I'm going over to page 297. Thus the Jews are a people who have ever, according to the prophecy, dwelt alone, without intermixing with the nations to this day. Now this separate race all descended from brown ancestors, for Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob must have been as dark as Mar Yohanan, if not darker, exhibit every shade of color from the black Jews of Malabar, of whom we have such an interesting account by Dr. Claudius Buchanan, to the rose and lily complexion of the Jewess on the banks of Elbe. These are the converts. These are the Edomite converts, the rose and lily complexion Jewesses. All right. I'll start here. We need go no further than the Jews of southern Spain and compare them with those of Holland and northern Germany to perceive a very striking difference. The Spanish Jew is always dark complexion, and his hair is uniformly black, while the German Jew is often as fair as any German. These are the converts, Visigoths, and has light or red hair with blue eyes. The various shades of color observable among the Negro or African race tends to the same conclusion. Along the coast of Guinea, which is low, marshy, and hot, we find jet black complexions. And this is the very country from which American Negroes have been derived. So they're telling you that the American Negroes, which many come from Guinea, also are the same people as the Spanish Jew that is always dark complexioned, which descend from the Jews of Malabar, descend from dark-skinned Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob must have been dark.
So, did you catch what he did? I don't know if you caught what he did. So, every time he got to the more lighter skinned Jews, what did he say? Oh, well, these guys are converts. These when he got to the German, oh, these are the Visigoths. These are the converts. Right? So, as you know, I've said many times, and many of us have said, if you're gonna read a passage of scripture, right, you wanna apply the 2020 rule, meaning you want to read about 20 verses before that verse that was quoted and 20 verses after that verse, so you can get the immediate context of what the writer was trying to convey. You could use this for all types of literature, and we're going to do that right now. Okay, because yes, I also have this book. We're going to look at it. All right. A. Barrington, A Treatise of Physical Geography. This is page 297. So this is a little bit before what he quotes. So again, so we could get the context of what the writer is trying to convey here. We are well aware that it has been repeatedly stated that the American Indians are all of one hue. Such assertions could have proceeded only from theorists who had either a very limited or no acquaintance with them. The Arab tribes also exhibit a great variety of hues, from the black of the Moghreba of the Sahara and the dark brown of the Sigia of the native of Oman, to the comparatively fair hue of the Arab of Lebanon. The answer to such facts is intermixture, but the other features often show that there has been no intermixture. So this is the point that he's working on right now. He's saying that because you see these various colors from these people, there must have been an intermingling of different races. What the writer is trying to convey here is that that's not the case, and he'll explain why it's not. He's saying that there wasn't any intermixture, that the Arabs are all the same, no matter what color, the Indians, and so on and so forth. Thus, the Moghreba Arab shows by his features, hair, and general expression that he is not blackened by being partly of Negro descent. There is another fact which proves that the answer of intermixture is unsatisfactory, which change of complexion is produced, as it often is, by intermixture. There's only one approximation to either of the colors. Thus, the mulatto is never as black as the Negro. Now, in the cases we have mentioned, there is a complete similarity of hue. The argument from intermixture is further rebutted by historic knowledge. Thus, the Jews, and this is where now we get to the quote that he mentions. The Jews are a people who have ever, according to the prophecy, dwelt alone without intermixing with the nations. To this day, now this separate race, all descended from brown ancestors, from Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, must have been as dark as Ma Yohanan, if not darker. Exhibit every shade of color, from the black Jews of Malabar, of whom we have such an interesting account by Dr. Claudius Buchanan, to the rose and lily complexion of the Jewish of the banks of the Elbe. Now, he gets to that part, and what he says, oh, those are converts. But is that the point he's making? The point he's making here is that these people of various hues of color don't get these color because they intermix. He's given examples of people who have not mixed. And first he talked about the Arabs, and now he says the argument from intermixture is further rebutted by historic knowledge. Thus, the Jews. He's using the Jews as an example of people that have various colors but are the same people. They didn't intermix with anyone. So when he says from the black Jews of Malabar, right, to the rose and lily complexion of the Jewish and the banks of Elba. He's saying that these are the same people, just different hues of color. That's the point he's making. That these, even though they have different color, it's the same race of people. So the people who are lighter skinned, rose and lily complexion, they're not converts. They're the same people as those who are as dark as Ma Yohanan. That's the point the writer's conveying. Now, just as an aside, I'm not saying I agree with anything here, nor am I defending this book. All I'm showing is what the writer was trying to convey here and how the good bishop completely eisegeted what he was trying to convey. Let's continue. We need go no further than the Jews of southern Spain and compare them with those of Holland and northern Germany to perceive a very striking difference. The Spanish Jew is always dark complexioned, and his hair is uniformly black, whilst the German Jew is often as fair as any German and has light or red hair with blue eyes. Right? He also shared this as well. And again, when he gets to the German part, what does he say? Those are converts. No, those are converts. Is that what the writer is saying here? He's continuing his argument against intermixture for the reason for the different hues. He's giving examples here. And then let's keep reading past the quote. The various shades of color observable among the Negro or African races tend to the same conclusion. Now he's using the African to his point. Along the coast of Guinea, which is low, marshy, and hot, we find jet black complexions, and this is the very country from which American Negroes have been derived. But when we come to elevated regions of the interior or pass into southern Africa, we find the very same race of various shades of brown, from a dark mahogany to a light copper, like that of the Fulahs of the Kong Mountains. Hence, when races change their localities, the color as well as other characteristics changes only by degrees, but in the course of ages, it always conforms to the climate. That's the punchline. He's saying that even though you see these various races of people have different color, when you see them in different parts of the world, it doesn't necessarily mean that they intermix with other races. What he's saying is because of the different climates, that's why you see the change of skin color. Right? And hence, without a single exception, we find all races long settled in low, marshy, and hot regions very dark or black, and those long resident in cool and equitable climates fair complexioned. While in regions of the intermediate character, we find an intermediate color. The Africans of the northern states are already several shades lighter than their Guinean ancestors, even in those cases where their thoroughly Negro hair and features show that they are not of mixed descent. So when this guy's talking about the Jews, right? Let me go back again. Right? Yeah, so where's the part here? The argument from intermixture is further rebutted by historic knowledge. Thus, the Jews, right? They exhibit every shade of color, from the black Jews of Malabar to the rose and lily complexion of the Jewish of the banks of. He's not saying that there's any intermixture here. Those who are lighter complexion aren't converts. They're from the same stock. They're from the same. They have the same ancestors, same people. Right? It says, while the German Jews often as fair as any German, this says the Spanish Jew is always dark complexion, and his hair is uniformly black, whilst the German Jew is often as fair as any German and has light or red hair with blue eyes. He's not saying that when they went over there, they lost their blackness because they intermarried with other races. The writer is saying this happened because of the climate. And the longer they stayed in these climates, their skin would change through adaptation. Right? So that's what he's saying here. Again, I'm not defending the book. I'm just telling you what the writer was trying to convey. The good bishop wanted to make us believe that these whiter Jews were converts. That's not the point the writer's making. He's saying even though they're white in comparison to the other Jews, it's the same Jews. It's not about intermixture. It's about the climate. It's the same Jews. There is no converts he's talking about here. The Germans are not considered converts according to this writer. So, yeah. You know. That's pretty much it. Big up to Built for Speed. BK did similar to the certain individual we all know who try to use the H. Johnson's book, The Negro and the New. Yeah, that was a time, boy. That was a time. I remember when you guys brought that out. That was crazy. But again, you know, we see a member of our UIC now, not only the eisegesis of the biblical text, but the eisegesis of various documents outside the Bible as well. They use the same model of reading things into the text that are not there, or to completely just rip the quote out of the context. So the question now is this being done because they don't read well, or they're being deceitful? Right? That's really the question now. Because we don't question that they're wrong. Obviously, they're reading these sources completely wrong. The question now is why? Are they doing it because they just, their bias cripples their ability to read objectively? Or are they being deceitful and hoping that the people that they speak to don't fact check them? Right? So again, it's like it's a constant pattern of reading things into text, not just the Bible, but any document they get their hands on. They do the same thing to that as well. The first book, he quoted from a scientific racist. The point he was making in that book was part and parcel of his overall philosophy of Black people are inferior. That book was a part of that propaganda. And the good bishop is trying to use that book to advance his agenda. But Christianity, that's the white supremacist, though, right? That's what they tell us. But time and time again, the good bishop uses white supremacist propaganda. So who's the agent again? Who's working for the man in this case? If you keep using their sources, what do you think people are going to start thinking? So, but I just want to share that, just those two examples of using white supremacist literature and completely misquoting and ripping things out of context from both books. Right? So, but this is what happens when you read things into the text. And this is what they teach. This is how they interpret not just scripture, but any, history books, biographies, poetry. I mean, you could give them an actual peer-reviewed journal article, and they will misquote it. They can have a genuine peer-reviewed article, and they'll figure out a way to warp it and manipulate it for their own needs. So it's built. It's funny you should say that, right? I'm gonna be doing some other videos where they actually try to co-opt what the Christian slaves did. But then they'll turn around and be like, well, Christianity is a slave religion. Right? So in fact, I'm gonna do that tomorrow night. I'm gonna do an example of that as well, which is very hypocritical of them. But again, guys, the good bishop quoting out of context, reading things into sentences that are not there, and using white supremacist propaganda. White supremacist, yeah, bats. It's wild. Now all of a sudden, I don't want to spoil it for you, but it's very interesting. They're very hypocritical of them. Well, tomorrow you'll see. So, but yeah, like this is just terrible. This is terrible. But at least they're consistent, right? They misquote and they read things into scripture all the time. So it makes sense for them to do that with other historical documents as well. So yeah, that's what it is. And that's why, people cannot be beguiled by this kind of doctrine. Because in order for you to be a part of this organization, you also have to, play all sorts of, semantic gymnastics with any text. Because the end game is, we got to prove our talking points. It doesn't matter if we have to warp and misshapen the facts to do so. They're more than willing to do that. And we need to be aware that they're willing to do that. So we're not caught flat-footed when we have these discussions with not just IURC, but many who proclaim Hebrew Israelism. Okay? So that's what I want to share with you guys. I hope that this was, we found this educational. And it just helps you to realize, how lost these guys are. Right? And I mean, yeah, at times it could be funny, but it's really sad that they have allowed their anger and their bias to cripple their ability to even read. That's why we always have to check our emotions and make sure that, we deny ourselves and take up our crosses daily and don't allow, our emotions to run wild. Because this is kind of what happens. You start disconnecting from reality. The skills that you've had to comprehend and understand gets disabled by your anger and your bitterness and the fantasy of revenge and getting back. It hurts you. Look how they read. Many of them, they have a decent education, but it's their hatred that takes all these tools that they've learned from school, they throw them out the window because I got to justify my anger. And I'm going to do that with the Bible. And I'm going to use white supremacist propaganda. I'm going to use whatever I can to satisfy and scratch the itch I have of my hatred for other humans. And this is where they stand. And that's what we need to pray. You know what I mean? So with that being said, guys, I'll catch you later. Peace.